really want to update you guys, like, what I'm doing with this UTAT. As you guys can tell, I had taken apart the entire rear section. There's a major flaw in the overall design. The minifigures weren't able to stand up properly. They were always leaned back in their seat, and I was able to carry 6 minifigures. I like to modify it to them to stand properly, as well as have a little command center right here, and maybe even more seats. The thing about that, when I change one aspect of the vehicle, I've changed the entire thing, because the slopes and angles have to correlate to a good overall looking design. Otherwise, it won't look proportionally correct, and the backside might look off compared to the front. That's what's really touchy about modifying any changes about vehicles, because once you do one thing, it affects another thing, almost like life. But I think I designed this back in 2020, and it's one of my most viewed videos to this date, is my review of this vehicle. And ever since this design came out, I feel like every other creator has took inspiration off of this vehicle. Even Dave's Customs had a version of this design, completely same front end, and his rear was a little bit different, but it's pretty much overall same design. He did message me asking me if I would let him use this design in his project, and I allowed him to do that. So he's the only person that reached out to me and asked if he can use my design. But Coconut Brick Studios is working on his version of UTAT. I'm really happy how his turned out. Reworking on the front end of his. Toughest part about this vehicle is the slight minute angles, which I feel like I was able to capture correctly, but it's very hard to recreate these angles without using nixel joints. And that's what he also did too, which I highly recommend if you want to do any sort of complex shape or angle. Use mixel joints. I've bought an entire cup of pick bricks worth literally of mixel joints over there, and I'm really happy to use those literally forever, because what's what I try to do with pick brick cups. I buy one part in a huge quantity so I never have to think about that part ever again. So a lot of these parts are surplus over here, and I bought a bunch of advent calendars and used those separating sorting system to sort all those pieces out over there, and I was able to empty out all those cups. So I highly recommend using the advent calendar sorting trays, because there's a lot of them and very useful. So I've been working pretty hard at this new rendition of the UTAT, and here's a little update what I've got to showcase for you guys. So I ripped out the entire structure, since there's a lot of empty space, and right here is going to be the command center. The cool thing about that, I made this section able to hinge upwards to get a lot more accessibility right here. And on top of that, to the right, I have a little built-in emergency exit, which is super helpful if you want to deploy troopers in the front as well as in the back, or if there's enemies below them, like trying to crawl underneath, place a bomb. I always like to add realistic war tactics to these vehicles, because if this was a war vehicle in real life, most likely it would have a lot of precautionary defense mechanisms already. If I take this back section off, so I made it so it's attachable, the entire top is attachable, and if I want to just hinge that part off, I can. Or if I really want to replace the entire roof, I could just remove that. Clearly it's not done, and we have full accessibility in the interior. Here's a better look at that interior hatch. So all it can do is just go, look at that. So it's been many hours of designing and refixing pretty much the entire vehicle, and as you guys can tell, it's mostly put together. The rear isn't complete yet. I must say I've added a lot of amazing features to this vehicle that I feel like it really deserved in the first design, but that's why we come back to things, because an art piece is never done, and a painter is never done painting. So let's just start off at the top right here. On this top turret, it is a lot easier to maneuver. So not only does it have the ability to go up and down, but I put a ball joint so it can go pretty much wherever you want. So that's really nice, and it's not going to come apart. And then we go to the front section. I've replaced this part right here with a little dark bluish gray to give it a little bit accent color. And the nice thing about this, I've redesigned the top section so it's a little bit wider. I use these plates. I'm going to put a little bit more tile and some slopes right there to cover up the gap. I'm going to change this bottom section so these parts are actually like built in instead of just like placed on by plates. And the back isn't done, clearly. So this is what I've really wanted in a UTAT. A bunch of troops for the interior. So it can carry 20 troops at least or more. So I put some troops standing on the side with this gonk droid, kind of chatting up with the other guys. And over here, there's a little portable delivery vehicle. I don't know exactly what it's called, but it came in the TIE Bomber. So I put that in there, and a few commanders chatting it up over there. I thought this was a pretty cool detail. So you notice on all this side, it's pretty much the 212th troopers and one single 501st guy. Maybe he's like the popular guy of the group. No one really likes to talk to other 501st troopers. And over here, the Coruscant Guard guys are just like super aggressive and with their blasters. Meanwhile, everyone else doesn't have their blasters. So just little things like that I really want to include with any mock that I do. Have some sort of story detailing. Just minifigures with these custom angled heads I actually 3D printed. So if I take this guy's helmet off very gently, as you can tell, it's the resin printed head. Unfortunately with these, it cracks a lot because I didn't punch out a hole in the center. You have resin cured for a while and there's no place for it to expand. It'll eventually crack over time. I learned that the hard way, unfortunately. I've already actually fixed that error in a new 3D print, so I don't have the issue anymore. I really want to sell those on my eBay store in the future. That'd be pretty awesome. A little pack of 5 or 10. That way I can give you guys the best deal, and I want to see you guys use this in your own mock. And yes, I will be making instructions for this, but as you can tell, I'm clearly designing it as we speak of. As we head toward the front of the vehicle, this is where the command center is. We have 2 pilots vehicling this entire UTAT, and the cool thing about these little seats, if we get this gonk droid out of the way, this is the same design that came from Dave's Customs ATTE. So I literally just took that design straight off the ATTE and put on the UTAT. Same with this section right here with all these guys sitting on these cool benches. Literally same exact design because they're very similar vehicles, so it would make sense to have very similar seating arrangements. Because the Republic turns into Empire, and Empire mass produce pretty much everything they do and try to do it as cheaply as possible. Kind of like the United States.